this is Amy Lynn with Lashes to Luxury podcast, and I am here today with Jeremy Cherry. He is a senior designer at Paramore Digital, an outdoor adventurer, and a connoisseur of barbecue sauce. So he's here to share some really good stuff with us. Jeremy, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you for mentioning the barbecue sauce, because that is a talent that is rarely noted.
It is a valuable part of you, so it had to be mentioned. Okay, so Jeremy, I want you to kind of give us some background on you, like talk about, your story. So tell me about your career and your credentials and what makes you an expert on all of the goods.
Awesome. Well, it started on a foggy morning in 1989. I'm kidding. That was when I was born. So I started designing a while back, actually. I kind of knew it was kind of a bizarre situation because I didn't kind of stumble across design. It was something that I kind of enjoyed doing pretty much most of my life from an early age. I was always really into kind of drawing and art and all that kind of stuff, whether that was music or art classes or any of that kind of stuff. And then in high school, I took a web design class and really liked it, so that was kind of what set me up to start doing that when I went into college. And then kind of fast forward, I moved to Nashville right after college and got a job at a really small nonprofit down here doing design. And then for the last 2.5 years, almost 3, I've been working at Paramore, which is a digital agency in downtown Nashville that does everything from mobile apps and websites to even some branding projects.
Good stuff. So, you obviously have insight onto the role of branding. So, can you kind of give me like some branding basics? Like, what does that look like in basic terms?
Yes, absolutely. So, I feel like the best place to start when talking about a brand is one of the biggest kind of myths or misconceptions about a brand, and that is that logo and brand are synonymous. So, that is a big myth. A logo and a brand are completely different things, and actually a logo fits within the umbrella of a brand, if that makes sense. So I think a lot of people, it can be very easy, especially when you're kind of managing either your own business or your own product or brand or service or really anything, to confuse the two. So really from a branding basics, without sounding artsy-fartsy, a brand is just everything that encompasses a company or a service or a entity, company, whatever that is. So that's everything from like colors to logos to, even things down to how is your print material styled, what colors do you use. Something that's really good to kind of visualize how big a brand can be is to think of just huge companies that are using these massive brand packages. So like a Nike, like a Coke, a McDonald's, all of those types of companies just have so many different aspects that are just so much bigger than just a logo. So when you think brand, you really can't think big enough when you think brand, because it's kind of honestly everything you put out there. So if you are, for instance, a small business owner, everything comes back to brand. Brand is kind of the central kind of piece that you work around. So that's everything from how you communicate with people via email and phone to what your website looks like. So I know that's kind of a big abstract explanation of brand, but yeah, that's kind of the basics.
Yeah, that's perfect. So what are some common mistakes that people do make when they're branding their business or themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Coming back to kind of that first misconception that we were talking about, one of the things that I see a lot of times done is people just making their branding or their logo rather work too hard. So a logo should just be a very simplified version of who you are, or in the case of a company, what you are. So for instance, you're not trying to put too many concepts into a logo. It should just be really just a very simplified visual representation of you, of your brand, of everything you have to say, everything you do. So I think one of the kind of first mistakes with kind of branding and getting that right is just making sure that all of those little elements are working together and they're very consistent. So making sure that everything you put out there kind of falls within that same kind of overarching goal. So I would say consistency is probably one of the biggest mistakes that's made. Hiring a designer can be challenging just because we're trying to communicate something that is very important to whoever we're serving as a client. So, obviously that client is going to know their product and their service way better than an outside designer, but a lot of times it's good to have an outsider's point of view to kind of represent that. So I would say just making sure that you're kind of fluid across your things. So what I mean by that is everything from your website to your business cards that you're handing out, coming back again to how you communicate with people, just making sure all of those things fit within one unified voice and brand, I think is a really big thing. And like I said, design elements are kind of honestly a very small part of that. They're very important, but they should just be kind of helping facilitate what you're already doing with your service, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, obviously we're makeup artists. We know what we do, and this is not typically something that we are super skilled at. So, like, if somebody is either rebranding or they're just starting out trying to figure out what their brand should be, like, how would they even start? You know, there's logos and there's websites and there's business cards and there's print materials and there's all the stuff. So, like, how does a person sit down and start that process? Is it better to just hire somebody?
Yes, absolutely. No, I think that's a fantastic question. Kind of the first piece of encouragement in that is if you're starting out from ground zero, like, you are in a great spot. And that sounds really weird to say that because you're probably feeling like that's not a great spot. The reason is because you can lay the foundation now and just kind of build upon that. I would recommend if you're starting from ground zero, I would start with kind of logo and identity work first. And basically what I mean by that is, you know, logo is self-explanatory, but a lot of times designers throw terms out like identity packages and stuff like that, and really all they're talking about is, you know, just kind of pieces that fall within a print style guide. So usually when a designer creates kind of a logo package for a client, they include what's called kind of like a creative style guide. Different designers will do that different ways. And when you make it up to the big time, when, like I said, you're a Nike or something like that, you know, your style guide could be hundreds of pages because you have so many different design elements. But that would be a great place to start because really that is the basic building block that everything else will base off of. So when you're doing print material, when you're doing websites, when you're doing even promotional videos, all of it is being built upon that current style guide that you have. So that's everything from colors and fonts to just ways that you show typography throughout all of your different elements and stuff like that. Kind of building upon that, especially if you're a small business owner, I know that print materials can be huge. You know, having something to hand out when you're meeting with clients and at a convention or speaking somewhere or whatever that may be, print materials can be a really great thing. So I would suggest, you know, we're kind of moving away from the world of where letterhead is a really big deal. I know that there's a lot of corporations and kind of companies that are still using that a lot, but if you're a small business owner, I would say it's not as big of a deal to have those types of items, but a business card is a huge deal. I would even say if you're working with a designer, to get creative with it. You know, a business card is a first impression for a lot of people. And creating something that stops them from just slipping it in their pocket and moving on is a really good first impression. To kind of come back to your second question, I always recommend hiring a designer. One of the reasons for that is just having a fresh take on all of these different design elements. You know, a lot of creatives kind of make the mistake of, because they're creative and because they have their kind of hands in so many different types of things and different types of media, that it can be really easy to start going in the trend of, oh, well, I'll just do it myself, and then I'll get someone to tweak the website, or I'll get someone to design the print materials after I do the branding. If anything, I would do the opposite of that. I would hire a designer to do your brand and make sure that your foundation is really strong, and if anything, use that style guide and that branding that a designer gives you to kind of build off some other things. There's so many great resources like Squarespace, and there's a lot of great templates out there to design print materials. So if you're a small business owner that's working on a budget, like I said, I would spend that money on hiring a designer in the beginning of a project with the brand so that you have more to kind of work with later on. I would say a website is absolutely important. I'm a little biased because my day job is a web designer, so it's very important, but everyone's first impression is the web. So like I said, things are moving away from print a lot unless you're handing out a lot of business cards all the time. So really people are going to Google you and then find you on the web and see what they can find out. So I think a website is a huge, important part of that.
Yeah, and something too that that goes along with that, I think, and especially for us, is because we are in a visual market, is how social media plays into, our online presence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm assuming that you would suggest that the branding also flow into our social media presence as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think that really branding should be kind of your overarching path throughout anything. So like anything you're putting out there on social should have one part of brand that's really hard to kind of capture talking about social is voice. Voice is something that we throw around a lot in the creative business, and really all we're talking about is just making sure that everything you're writing, everything you're saying on social media, anything you're saying in promotional materials, whether that's print or video or any of that kind of stuff, making sure it's all coming from the same spot and it doesn't sound like it's coming from multiple people. Especially if you're someone who is just someone managing a small business, again, coming back to that and working from the bottom up. You are your brand. So you walking around and interacting with people is going to be that first impression someone gets. And a lot of times your branding package, whether that's logo or website or representing what you offer in person. So making sure that you're kind of coming across it consistent across your voice. And again, I'm glad you mentioned social media because that's a big deal. People are they're not only going to Google you, they're going to Facebook you. A lot of times Google is going to show up with your Facebook profile as one of the top leads on its results page. So making sure that you're putting out consistent content to everyone really is really important. Even the design elements that you're putting out on social media, I know that it can get really easy to just throw something out there since social media is so timely, but I would definitely recommend any type of design elements that you're throwing out into social media, making sure that that still fits within your style guide. Social media doesn't exist outside of your website. It's kind of all one online presence.
Yeah, I need to work on that. I just attended the makeup show this past weekend, and it kind of reinforces what I'm about to say, which is in the world of makeup, we are very attracted to lots of color and lots of sparkle. I'm telling you, there were probably 5 vendors there just selling glitter alone. So, we love that crap. We like the, hot pink, and we like all the excitement. And so we're very attracted to some pretty gaudy stuff. So, how is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing when it's coming to branding? We tend to be kind of over the top people. So, what does that look like?
Yeah, so I would like to preface my response by saying that from a design perspective, I'm a minimalist. So I really like kind of making things as simple as possible. With that being said, I think that can be a very good thing. When in minimalism within design, there's kind of a saying that an accent can go a really long way. It's like if you've got a white room that has a white table and a white TV stand and a white couch, that green chair is going to stick out. So if that's what you want people to do, if you want people to sit in that green chair, they're going to do it because it's sticking out in a white room. So that's just kind of a random, terrible example, honestly, of what I was trying to say. But anyways, an accent can go a long way. So I think that within that kind of realm, the glitz and the glamour and that kind of stuff is representative of the industry. I think probably a lot of your clients are going to realize that is represented a lot too. But as far as how to implement that throughout your design, I would say using it as an accent can be a really great thing. But a little bit can go a really long way. So if you want to put one little splash of glitter on your website, let that just be very sparingly, because it's going to make much more of a statement than if glitter is all over your website.
Gotcha.
And two, another thing with that is being true to the industry. I think that our generation is so kind of hell-bent on being different, both visually and what we look like, what we listen to, and all those kind of things that, I think that there's a fine line between that. It's kind of making sure that you're in line with the rest of your industry about, with also creating a brand that is unique and true to who you are. So I'd say if you like glitter, go for glitter, because if that's your personality, then, go for it and just use a little bit of it. Just try not to use the whole bottle.
Show some restraint.
That's right.
Cool. Okay, my last question is, if you were a lipstick, if there was a lipstick color that was inspired by you, what color would it be, and what would its name be?
I mean, I think that's a given for me. It's cherry red, trademark pending.
Right?
Like that last name. I mean, I think that just drives the brand home, you know?
Truly.
I feel like that's a natural progression. I mean, Justin Bieber put out a cologne, so I mean, I don't think it'd be out of the ordinary for me to put out a lipstick shade. I mean,
Oh, it wouldn't be. And your status is pretty much up there with the Biebs. So.
I try. What can you do?
Awesome. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your insight, and I know that everyone else does.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Much love.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.